Pew, pew, pew. Hey, nice work. And we got to quit hitting our tables and knocking our cameras around, and we're ready to rock. Look, we've got so much to get to football related, but it's not all football today. Number one, why a lot of you have showed up here today, and good grief, I hope we get the streaming going because I want to hear from the people on the stream. I think we have it now. Heartache for Canada at the World Junior Hockey Championship in Ottawa. The host nation is out of the tournament after losing 4-3 to Czechia in the quarterfinals. The world's biggest hockey tournament ended for Canada last night in terms of meaningful games. Canada battled back from a 2-goal deficit to tie the game in the third, but Adam Dzeko scored with 39 seconds to go for Czechia in regulation time and then went on to win. It's the second straight year Czechia has eliminated Canada in the quarterfinals. There are other semifinals. We don't care. Canada's done. Okay, so look, we got the Sugar Bowl to talk about. We've got NFL Week 18 upcoming. We've got a very loquacious poll question to get to today. Luke Wilson is commissioner of the CFL, not the actor, the tight end, Super Bowl winning Seattle Seahawk. We got all these things to get to, but for the hockey people that have showed up here today, and I got NHL scouts texting me today, I don't know why, Darren, they're trying to get everybody to calm down in Canada. I don't think our American viewers that don't realize this is the one time out of the year where junior hockey fans and Canadian hockey fans come together to either celebrate or go lose their ever-picking minds. It's like college football year-round. They do it for like 2 weeks in Canada in the World Juniors. And right now, and Canada lost last night. And I'm going to tell you something. Here's my take because it's the Rod Pedersen Show. That's why you all came here. I'm going to tell you a lot of these pundits are showing their homerism for Canada, which is fine. I was born there. I was a Canadian citizen. I was the voice of Team Canada as well. I wore the leaf. But come on. Doug McLean, Theron Fleury, Bob McKenzie, the TSN czar, not the hoser Bob McKenzie. They're complaining about the officiating. Come on, guys. Canada wasn't good enough. Talking about the 5-minute kneeing major in the first period, Darren. Canada wasn't good enough. And to complain about officiating, listen, I wrote that handbook. You do that when you have run out of excuses or you don't want to talk about your own team or look in the mirror. Okay. And the head coach, Dave Cameron, with a very ill-advised challenge of a goaltender interference call, which he lost and took a penalty for it. Canada from the jump was awful in this tournament. And people are mad, Darren. People are pissed off. I'm just saying, point it at the right spot if you got to point it somewhere today. That's what I'm saying. How about you?
Yeah, people are mad and people are upset. And I thought about this a little bit. Last night, they were down 3-1 going into the second. And we saw it, and I tweeted it, in the second and third period. Like, that was Canada going, let's call it balls to the walls. It was relentless. It was wave after wave of Canadian pressure. There was chances. The crowd was on their feet. They were getting going. And that's what we've come to expect from this team. You wear your heart on your sleeve. You bleed for the maple leaf, the red and white, and you go and forget about who you are and trying to do things. You just go in wave after wave after wave. Problem is, we only did it for 2 periods of the whole tournament. And by that point, it was too late. We did enough to get back into the game, and then an unfortunate late goal. But that's what we expected to see, shift after shift after shift, and they just never saw it until it was too late.
Okay, well, so just I said I wanted to get the streaming going, and we did, thanks to whoever's responsible for that. Jeremy writes in, he says, Canada wasn't good. Jeremy in Winnipeg, he says, wasn't good because they left so many guys off the roster. I get some are hurt, but that was some players off the team way better than what was there. Patrolman Pete says, I love junior hockey, but I could never get invested into World Juniors. I'm more miffed about the Jets blowing a lead to Anaheim. Well, that's you, Patrolman Pete. This is what we're talking about here right now. Shy writes in and says, fire them coaches for Team Canada. All of that. And then people are obviously getting off track. For right now, we're talking about the World Juniors and Canada being out at the World Jays. And Dave Cameron, the head coach, did not acquit himself. Well, I don't know the guy. I've covered tournaments that he's coached for Team Canada. This was a better team than what they played. And my beautiful better half, Serena, we watched the game together. I was just telling Yvonne here, Darren, the receptionist in the Sanctuary Office Tower where we do the show. She's a fan of our Cats and Bolts podcast. And She goes, I just love your wife. I love her hair. And I said, well, the only time we argue actually is over hockey. And Serena said last night, well, Canada deserved to win. Canada deserved to win. Yeah, we're just going to have to go to bed quiet and not talk about this. What do you mean you deserved to? Canada did not deserve to win. What are you saying? Well, the officiating took it away, or your undisciplined play took it away? Bad decisions by the coach took it away. I don't know. I'm not going to ask Jim Barker to weigh in on this next segment because we look at things differently all the time. And plus, he's a football guy, and we're talking about hockey here right now. But I don't think you deserve anything. You got to get out of bed every single day and bust your ass and prove why you need to win at life, win a hockey game, win a football game. You don't deserve anything. So that's my take on that. But as far as bitching about the officiating, before I move on, do you have any take on that, on the officiating? It wasn't great, but didn't cost them the game either.
It wasn't great, the 5-minute major, and a few different things. But, the one that, I think would get me the most is, you call an embellishment penalty and a tripping penalty. Like, if it's diving, it's diving. If it's tripping, it's tripping. I know it can both happen, but now it feels like it always has to be together. And you'll never just see an embellishment penalty. But at the end of the day, every time throughout this tournament, they went to the replay of the penalty, Mike Johnson's like, that was a penalty. Like, they're the most penalized team in the tournament. You need to be disciplined. And when you're playing against a team like Czechia or Latvia or a team that you're better than, and the ice is tilted and you're heavily out shooting them, the only way for those teams typically to win, weather the storm, get a big save, get a big scave, score in a power play or score in a mistake. You can't give them power plays. That's how they win games.
Yes.
That happened last night.
Well, 50 years of World Juniors coming up next year in Minnesota will be the 50th. So we've got officials from other countries doing the game. And so they don't understand the concept of rough hockey or the way it's going to be played. That's not new. Okay? So I'm kind of over it. I find it just interesting. Again, I'm very blessed and fortunate to count these guys all among my friends. Theron Fleury, Doug McLean, Bob McKenzie, all complaining about the officiating, the calls. I'm like, guys, you're showing your Canadian homerism here. Try to be a little more nonpartisan if possible. But that's just my take on that. I'm ready to move on to football. Georgia coach Kirby Smart says he doesn't regret aggressive offensive play calls that backfired during the Bulldogs college football playoff quarterfinal loss to Notre Dame last night in the Sugar Bowl. A decision to have inexperienced quarterback Gunnar Stockton drop back to pass in the final minute of the first half went badly as he was sacked by Notre Dame's R.J. Olben, fumbled. Fighting Irish recovered, scored a touchdown one play later. Notre Dame went on to win 23-10. Darren, not a single one of the top four teams, have you noticed, that had a bye? One. They all are out. Semifinals are set next Thursday in the Orange Bowl here in Miami. It'll be number 6, Penn State versus number 7, Notre Dame. Cheapest ticket, $300 US. And it's only going up. And then Friday in the Cotton Bowl, it'll be number 5, Texas versus number 8, Ohio State. So of all the games of the college football quarterfinals, by far the most entertaining was Texas ASU. Hey, if Georgia has, I want to say Carter Beck, he's the baseball star. No, Carson Beck, the quarterback. Yep. It's a different game, but it wasn't. He was hurt. I'm surprised they kept it as close as they did. Wasn't much of a game, the Sugar Bowl, from what I could see. I was clearly watching the World Junior game. But here we go with the semis. Are you happy with them?
Yeah. College football, I saw this, and I agree with it, so I'm going to steal it. I think it might have been Colin Cowherd or Dan Patrick or something. College football is better when Notre Dame is competitive, and Notre Dame is good. And, highly recognizable, big fan base, a lot of tradition, and they're good. They're well coached. It's easy to root for Notre Dame with Marcus Freeman, the coach, and Riley Leonard, a quarterback, athletic guy. Easy to root for them. And, Georgia's good defensively, made some plays, but just at the end of the day, we got a really good Final Four. They'll talk about the seeding. It wouldn't have mattered. If you're going to give teams byes, Georgia probably gets one. Oregon gets a bye anyways. as being two of the top teams in the nation. But yeah, I mean, college football is going to great places despite the blowouts and some of these games not being entertaining. But it's going to get really, really good.
Well, for those that are just really getting into it, prepare for the format to change next year. There'll still be 12 teams, but those top four not advancing to the semifinals, it's going to bring about changes for sure. But I guess if the best four teams still remain and the healthiest, because Georgia would have been in there if Beckett was healthy, here we go. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun week ahead. By the way, regarding Canada deserved to win last night, Shy writes in, he says, God will let you know what you deserve, like it or not. Thank you, Shy. I agree with you on that. That's a good one. Jeremy in Winnipeg says, every game you always battle the adversity of the officials. Nothing's changed. Quit bitching. What can you do? Bitching gets you nothing but wasted oxygen, right? And us talking about it is more wasted oxygen. It's just an easy way to blow off steam and not look in the mirror, blame somebody else. Moving on to the National Football League, Moose, there are a lot of points to get to. Among the stories in Week 18, the final week of the regular season in the NFL, Saquon Barkley's pursuit of Eric Dickerson's 40-year-old rushing record got grounded. Eagles coach Nick Sirianni isn't planning to play Barkley and other starters because his team is locked into the NFC's number 2 seed. They got the Giants. Are we surprised by this? I love the fact that the sports people watch this show, and there were football coaches writing in, some saying they were former O-line coaches, saying, hey, this is a rushing record that's a team record, that it's not just Barkley's name on it, but it's the O-line's name on it. Sure. Nick Sirianni's job is to do what's best for the team. I feel like Uncle Lewis and Christian. That team in that Christmas Vacation. Ask the blessing. What's best for the team? Not setting a record, Darren. No. Sitting Saquon down and having him healthy for the playoffs. That's what's best for the team. I like the decision here.
No, of course. It's what's best for the team. Is it what's best for Saquon Barkley? I don't think so. But it is what's best for the team. And for Sirianni, he cares about the team. The owner cares about the team. Like, the owner doesn't get any of the residual benefits that Saquon will after his career is over for being the rushing leader. You know, the team won't get any of that, but Saquon will. It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate for Saquon. I wish he would have had the chance to do it. But if the coach is making this decision, yeah, it is. It is what's best for the team. If I'm an Eagles fan, I love it because as an Eagles fan, you care about the team. And so it's a hard decision. I'm sure it wasn't easy, but that's the way it is.
There will be people in Philadelphia that don't agree with this decision, for sure. And fans of Saquon Barkley, maybe some even in New York. I don't know, but this was the right decision. Maybe we'll ask Coach Barker about that next. Jeremy says, even if they had Carson Beck, Georgia would still have lost. Sorry, Carson Beck hater here. We'll never know. And that's the unfortunate thing, but at least the Bulldogs have their national championships, not with him at quarterback necessarily, but Georgia will be fine, and they won some big games this year, not the least of which was the SEC championship in their own stadium. By the way, do you have a rooting interest moving forward in the semi? For me, it'll be Texas and Steve Sarkisian, the former Rough Rider. I broadcast his games in the CFL. So for me, for sure, Texas. How about you?
I think they're going to be on opposite sides so they could meet in the final. I'm going Texas and Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame has become my rooting interest moving forward.
Is Jim Barker knocking on the door to get in?
He is.
Okay. I'll handle this if you want. We can take an early break, too. Shy wants to know, where's the poll today on YouTube? I don't know, Shy. You can go to Twitter, though, and vote there. Darren's flying the ship. He's got a lot of hands in the balls in the air here. The poll question is, who will win the biggest regular season game in NFL history this Sunday? The Vikings or the Lions at Ford Field? By the way, we're going to be playing Deal or No Deal later. Lions are favored by 2. That's the poll for EMJ Marketing. EMJ Marketing will provide the perfect keynote speaker for your event. Look up their roster at emjmarketing.com and ask for Joe there. Hey, Kevin the Medium. Hi. Tony from George Fox Country writes in. He says, how ironic. They built a team for penalty killing and defense, and they played shorthanded in perimeter hockey. Team Canada management has to take the blame for this one, right? Yet everybody would like to complain about the officiating because it's easy and the refs can't talk back. Tony, you're lucky. You're in luck because Jim Barker's in next on a Football Friday. Then it's just me and Moose all of hour two because there's still a lot of breaking hockey news to get to that we haven't got to yet. We'll be right back here on Game Plus Television, live streaming, and of course, podcasts wherever the best podcasts are found. Back to the RP show on a Football Friday here tomorrow. Culligan Water, Regina. Visit culliganregina.com. We're going to welcome in our usual Friday guest, Jim Barker, five-time Grey Cup champion, the veteran of every football league and coach. I guess I'll start with this. I don't think you saw what we were talking about earlier. Of the many stories in Week 18 of the NFL, one is the Eagles sitting down Saquon Barkley and not giving him the chance to break Gary Dickerson's 40-year NFL rushing record. What are your thoughts on that move?
Well, this is about winning Super Bowls, and do it, but I understand. And that if he was to go in there and get hurt, you can't. There's too many people in that organization that care about one thing, and while years, that's not what's important. What's important is that they are 100% healthy. So to me, it's a no-brainer. It's a absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, me too. I'm surprised there'd be anybody that would be. I mean, you've never been around a team if you don't understand why they would be doing this. He is the MVP of the league or best player that's not a quarterback. Now, another note. I don't know how you are on science. Biggest NFL game in history, biggest regular season game, Sunday night, Minnesota at Detroit. The math says it's the first time 2 14 win teams have gone against each other.
Yeah.
That works for me.
And the team
that is the
goes on
biggest
the
game.
road to the play. I mean, it just makes no sense. The whole. It's too bad. But boy, what a great setup. Two really solid defenses. You got quarterbacks that are, I mean, Goff and Sam Darnold are so similar. Again, it's I think it's just such a great matchup. It's what the NFL, I mean, it's a last game and it means so much. So I think it's a great finish for their season.
How do you like the way, now I assume you follow probably more NFL coverage, acted and analyzed ad nauseum. It's almost too much. But people are saying when Dan Campbell says we're going to go for it every time, he's making defense. Do you go along with that? He's trying to establish an identity. A and B. Do you think that might change?
Yeah. Well, he has. There's been times he has not gone to go. He didn't go for it. So he says what he's trying to fire his team up and things, but He's like I said, coaching in the NFL is, we were talking about coach of the year before Christmas, and we were talking about coach of the year, and I was thinking, Dan Quinn probably deserves it, but so much of the organization, and when Dan Snyder sold that team to Josh Harris, that became the reason they're different. Not Dan Quinn. Oh, maybe Dan Quinn would be a guy that would be up for that, but at the ownership level, and Detroit now they've had the same owner, which is rare. That now they have a coach that is kind of he's become the fixture, kind of like what Belichick did in with New England. Nobody in Arizona has been able to do that. Was able to do that when Dan Snyder was there. The Jets, nobody can do that with Woody Johnson. I mean, you look at the organizations that are bad and they have ownership. The LA Raiders are the Las Vegas Raiders now. That's another great example. It goes from Davis. It doesn't matter who they bring the coach as the coach. I don't believe, because he's there, and they are the ones that dictate what that whole organization is like. So I thought it was kind of interesting. You made me think about it with that coach of the year.
Well, yeah, and actually, it's funny you say that, because I was thinking about Dan Quinn kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, they just made the playoffs with that time victory over the Falcons a couple of weeks ago, and I'm just kind of sitting there going, who does get the credit? It kind of also would go back to drafting Daniel second overall too.
To me, it's Josh Harris,
right?
Period. To me, when he bought the team, he brought a new mentality. He brought it's stuff that fans don't see a lot. It's how do they fly? How do they travel? How do they dine hall for the players during the day? And how is the facility? And how do they do the little things? That's what sets organizations apart. And it's what makes some jobs much tougher than others. Owners that are gonna, do things differently, and it makes it tougher for those places to win.
Well, absolutely. Some of the other notes that I have written down here regarding Week 18. Miami Dolphins going up to New York to take on the Jets, and you see Rodgers not sure if he's going to play next year, if the Jets even want it. Maybe others aren't talking about.
That Lions and the Vikings, obviously. I'm going to find it interesting to watch. Forget this, but the year that Alex Smith's last year with Kansas City, he had a phenomenal year. And this week, because they were worried about him getting hurt for the playoffs, who got the start instead of him? Patrick Mahomes. They saw what he did in that playoff game. In the offseason, jettisoned Alex Smith off to Philadelphia, and the rest is history. Well, this week, Patrick Mahomes is off, and doesn't mean that Carson Wentz is going to supplant Patrick Mahomes, but Carson Wentz can resurrect his career. He can actually get himself into the limelight, like what Sam Darnold has done with Minnesota. And, they're talking a lot about Sam Darnold being the comeback player of the year. And I wanted to ask you about this, what you thought about this. So they're talking about him as comeback player of the year. But what did he come back from? He's never been anything. I mean, to me,
yeah. It's not the most fascinating field of candidates for comeback player. I totally know what you're saying. Like Michael Vick could have been the comeback player of the year back in the day. Didn't Joe Flacco win it last year? Which makes sense.
I mean, that would make sense. And then in LA, an opportunity to see, okay, now he's healthy. Now he's in a good system. What is he? Is he a guy that a team might go on? So there's interesting games because of guys who are playing for playoff teams resting players, especially at the quarterback position, because obviously it's quarterback driven league. So those are kind of the games that I look for, are to watch guys like Carson Wentz and Jimmy Garoppolo and getting their opportunity to play with a good team and see what they can do.
Well, that, and you look at all these games, Darren and I are going to play our deal or no deal later with the betting lines, but Bears at Packers, Green Bay's favored by 10. You coaches don't care about that. But the game has no effect on the standings. They can't move up or down, Green Bay. So when you're the coach, oh, man.
Yeah.
Are those,
like I say, the Bears getting 10 points when the Packers don't need it, it means nothing. That's obviously, from a betting perspective, I would look at that as a prediction. It hit me watching the college games. Ryan Day, Ohio State's going to win the national championship. Ryan Day and Chip Kelly are going to tell Ohio State they can take their Michigan and stick it up their rear end, and they're going to Chicago, and they're going to take over Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
That's my prediction.
Well, I know we're having some issues here with our feed today, and I apologize for those that we're having some problems with. There's certainly nothing that Jim and I can do about that. So we're going to continue to sit and talk football. In the time we have left, which is about 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, earlier when we talked about it, the top 4 seeds all are out. The teams that had the bye. What does that say, do you think?
Well, I think that the system is flawed, and I Coach Alt, who I worked with, is on that committee. I know that committee, but the system forced them to put Boise State and who you play. I think Nick Saban said it best: "Who you play matters," and was a bad conference this year, and Arizona State won it. No, they beat Iowa State. They won the Big 12. But does that make them one of the 4 best teams? And I think when you see all 4 teams, now Oregon deserved to be number 1 ranked. They really did. I mean, beat Ohio State during the year. They had a decently tough schedule, and they were 3-0. You had to make them number 1. Georgia, again, if they did the rankings late, Carson back, who knew Carson back was going to be out? I think with Carson back, that might have been a completely different game with Notre Dame. But so that one, you give a little bit. Arizona State and Boise State, I just didn't believe either one of them. I mean, Boise State hadn't beat a team that, in the upper echelon. They had lost by a point to Oregon, and that was their claim to fame of what he did all year. Because of the winning the conference, they had to rank there. So I think they'll redo that. I think they'll relook at that. Because when you look at the college basketball playoffs, the number 1s are normally always one of those. And they get the team to play the best at the end of the year. And I think that's eventually what's going to happen here. And they're not going to worry about conference. They're going to take the best team, play the best schedules. And like I say, football committee, they have a lot of really, really smart football people that understand what it takes to win games this time of the year. And again, I think the final, I think 4 best teams are in now. I mean, right now, I think Ohio State is better than Oregon right now. Twice, I think Ohio State is better than them. And with Penn State and Notre Dame, what a great game to be. You have 2 similar teams, both play great defense. Notre Dame probably plays better defense than Penn State, but Penn State has a more volatile offense. That tight end they have, anyone who hasn't watched, that tight end they have, number 4, I can't do his name right now. And so their offense makes them viable against Notre Dame. And Texas just has too many injuries right now, and they're playing Ohio State team that's really. But I think you have the 4th team right now. So the goal, they got there.
They kind of lucked into it. Yeah, exactly. Well, if for Texas, for Longhorns fans, going to overtime against State, was that a scare, or is it proof that they're maybe not as good as we thought?
I think the offensive line much more beat up than people know. And watching the kind of pressure that Quinn Ewers was under, going in Arizona State front that was not, it's nowhere near what they're going to see with Ohio State. And Ohio State right now defensively is playing so well. I know how Texas is going to move the ball, and I just think that Ohio State right now is playing lights out. Their offense is so talented. Their receiving core is so talented. So I think that's a tough game for them. In fact, I haven't seen what the line is yet, but I'm guessing it's going to be could be as much as a show.
Actually, I had a gallery, and I'm supposed to ask you about appearing on a reality TV show. I don't watch it with sports, so I don't really know. What is
my
it?
daughter who lives in Las Vegas, her husband was the wizard at the gala, which is one of the top shows that his knees went bad. So there's a show called Queer Eye for a Straight Guy, and she does a lot of comedy things. So they basically, he was the person. The episode called Merlin Gets a Makeover, and so they make him over into it kind of give a look, but it's yeah, his beard and his hair was with them, and then they also fix our house up, and at the end they do this housewarming, and I happen to be in town, so I was there at housewarming. So I got a little bit of TV time right at the end of the Queer Eye for Straight Guy.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
And great listeners actually watching the
Janice was the viewer, by the way, from Saskatoon. I was teasing you, break up. It's pretty cool when people out, a lot of people watching you. Sure, that's one thing we realize.
I get that sort of about this show, and I go about TSN. So, and maybe you guys are all sides of the board. I don't know what it is, but I have more people coming up to me about, I love RV, and like, nobody ever comes to me, and so I can do from TSN.
It's the best we ever done, Coach. So thanks. Glad to be on the movement in 2025. All the best.
And uh-oh. Okay. You see it? Okay. We are ready to go.
Issues, but we're here. I think I'm going to wait until I see myself to officially know that I am here. We'll be bringing Moose in when we can. Just chill, everybody. Chill out, okay? We have it all figured out. The Moose does. What's really crappy about all of this, and Moose, I don't know if you want to join. I think it's just going to be you and me probably right up until the top of the hour. You do what you have to do. It might have been the best interview we've ever had with Jim Barker. Did you hear any of it?
It was really good. And I'm not on the screen, and I'm still on the phone with the TV channel, but the interview was really good. You just got to trust us on it. I really wish we would have had that captured. I'm sorry.
It's not like he said anything groundbreaking, but folks, let me recapture for you, summarize and paraphrase what Jim Barker said when he was on with us here just moments ago. But for reasons that I don't care to get into, the interview was basically lost with Jim Barker on this Football Friday. And for those that bailed, thanks for nothing. And for those that have stayed, thanks for staying on the team. T-shirts in the mail. But anyways, we didn't talk any CFL with Jim Barker at all, so let's just get that out of the way. We didn't. But we will a little later on. I have some things that I'd like to get to with Moose next hour. We talked about the NFL Week 18 storyline, Saquon Barkley not playing for the Eagles, and Jim's like, no-brainer that he won't. And if you don't understand why, you've never been around the game. Breaking this record is not important to the Philadelphia Eagles. It is to Saquon Barkley. He's not going to have a chance to break Eric Dickerson's 40-year rushing record, but it's not a team award, and they're in it for team. Not that hard to figure out. We talked about the Lions and the Vikings game, and it is indeed, Jim agreed, the biggest game in NFL history, regular season. A lot of things we got to with him. college football playoff. It's just a little bit of an oddity that the top 4 teams, based on 1, 2, 3, 4, the seedings in the college football playoff, out of the 12 teams, all those top 4 are gone. And Jim goes, well, actually, matter of fact, Darren, if you're able to bring yourself on, did you hear any of what Jim Barker had to say when he was on?
Oh, yeah. I was listening.
Okay. I'm not trying to catch you on this. I'm just saying I don't want to repeat if you heard it already, but I guess for the viewers that didn't, he goes, whether they screwed this format up or not, the best 4 teams remain. Right?
He's
that
right.
Are still alive. Notre Dame, Penn
he's
State,
right.
OSU, and Texas.
Yeah, it's worked out. And I know I'm not on the screen yet. I'm still working on that. But it has worked out. Like, we're going to get good teams and good games down the stretch. I said this at the beginning. You know, when everybody was complaining about the blowouts, it's like, yes, it's going to happen. But it's the further we go along in this thing, the better chance of having better games, and it's going to get better. And lo and behold, it's gotten better. You know, the game with Texas and ASU was really good.
Oof.
You know, and even Georgia Notre Dame wasn't a bad game. And it's going to get a lot better as we move into the Final Four.
We've got a lot of things to cover. God willing that we're on the air for the next 1 hour and 16 minutes. I
can let you know this.
What?
If you give me a half a second, we are still on our regular schedule, and I'm on the screen now. So, hey, I'm back. But despite everything that happened, we can still break in 5 minutes. And then again, at the top of the hour, we are back on track. We didn't burn anything.
Well, this is what I feel like. This is the parallel. To all the people writing in, like John from Edmonton, you're twitching a little, Rod. Shy says, shivery video, but your voice is back. This is like the fan in the stands going, your power play needs fixing. You don't have the right PP, right-handed shot on the PP. Your goaltender's out of position. We know.
We watched the film.
Yeah, it's like, I've said this for years. I saw this with the Rough Riders. It's like if you are just now pointing out a glaring deficiency in their game, the coaches saw it 3 months ago. Okay? We're aware that the feed ain't great today. My God, we should get a Purple Heart for making it happen because our production arm was not available all week long. So we're aware that it ain't perfect.
A Purple Heart. Yes, that's good. I like that.
For bravery. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, let's get them all back. And then the other thing that, quite frankly, I found the most entertaining out of the Jim Barker interview was, I said, Coach, well, here's why. People missed it. But Janice in Saskatoon wrote in, and she goes, I saw Jim Barker on Queer Eye for a Straight Guy. Can you get him to address that? And Jim brought up how his son-in-law was featured in this show, Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. And it's kind of a Vegas thing. He said he was down visiting his daughter and her husband in Las Vegas. He goes, my son-in-law was the wizard at the Excalibur for 20 years. I don't really even know what that means.
I was going to say, what's the wizard? Like of Oz?
I've never been to the show. But he said his wizard son-in-law, Merlin, got a makeover on Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, and he was on the show. Jim Barker was on. Jim lived in Vegas for years. I think he still has a house there. So to be honest, it's not as quick. And anyways, Jim said at the end of the interview, and I don't know, I think you might have been on the phone with Game Plus when this was going on, trying to deal with this issue, but he goes, I get way more reaction to being on the RP show than I do on TSN. And that's in Canada and the U.S. He goes, I don't know if it's because your show is on in both countries or what, but he goes, everywhere I go, somebody's coming up to me saying, I love you on the RP show. He goes, I've never once had anybody come up and say, I know you from TSN, or I love watching you on TSN. And we didn't record it. We don't have it.
No, we don't.
Glenn writes in with 2 N's. He says, your feed is so choppy today, I had to give up watching. Another day, Rod. Well, Glenn, thanks for nothing. Bye. Mark writes in. He is in Yorkton. Hi, Rod. He says, I see the Dolphins top. I worry for you, division rivals. I think the Jets squish the fish. A Sunday upset. Mark goes on to say, regarding Saquon Barkley, the potential record is not just important to Saquon, but the entire offense would take pride in being part of that accomplishment, especially the O-line. We read your comment the other day, Mark. He says, love the show. So I appreciate that. I'm not saying you're wrong. What I'm saying is Nick Sirianni and the Eagles don't agree with you. And there are a lot of comments that have come in, Darren, that I'll get to when we come back. Mark in Burlington, Ontario writes in and says, the broadcast quality is awful today. Thanks, Mark. We weren't aware. We'll be right back. We're live on Game Plus Television, I think. Live streaming and podcasts, wherever the best podcasts are found. Okay, everybody, we are back, and thanks for sticking with us. Again, we're doing our best. Our regular production team not available this week, and for those that we've disappointed, so sorry. Hopefully, you got your money's worth. You know what I'm saying? To the text line and the stream, Wilf writes in from Steinbach, Manitoba. And it's regarding the World Juniors. He says, "Hey, Rod and Moose, I think the scoreboard says who deserved to win." Yeah, it's kind of Darren wasn't part of this as much earlier on. It was our first point here today. Canada losing at the World Juniors last night in a quarterfinal, actually. Here's the official wire copy story. The Canadian team is making an early exit from the World Junior Hockey Championship for the second year in a row. Canada dropped a 4-3 quarterfinal decision to Czechia Thursday night. Bigger things were expected for the host side after missing out on the medal games last January in Sweden. The semifinals are set for Saturday in Ottawa. How this comes up, or why Wilf brings this up about who deserved to win. My wife, Serena, is the biggest, one of the biggest hockey fans I've ever known, and definitely the biggest World Juniors fan I've ever known. She sits and watches all the games. And last night she says Canada deserved to win. Anybody that's still watching, could you tell me how to deal with that? Like when you don't agree with it and it's your wife? What do you say? It's like last year, Stanley Cup final, Game 7. She's the Oilers fan. She went to the game. I'm not a Panthers fan, but I live here, so what the hell? I was cheering for Florida. I went on record as saying that. Florida won 2-1 in Game 7, and she says the Oilers deserve to win the series. What does that even mean? No, you didn't, because you lost. I don't get it. Tony in Cochrane says that last hour was shakier than a dry January. Jeremy in Winnipeg says everyone tries to be perfect. Having tech issues, it is what it is. Keep on going. Great show. Thank you, Jeremy. Shy in Saskatchewan says this is the best show, yet even with all the bugs. BW in Edmonton says you say, yes, dear. Bill in Regina says you say, yes, dear. John in Edmonton will address your World Juniors questions when we come back next hour. Yeah, I tried that. I don't always agree that we should just say, yeah, I guess maybe I should try that. But what if you don't really feel that way? You know that whole phrase, happy wife, happy life? I find that doesn't really work. Happy me, happy life tends to work a hell of a lot better. 6 teams remain at the Canadian mixed doubles curling trials in Liverpool, Nova Scotia. The winner. So you just think, yes, dear. Oh, you're just saying that. The winner of the Page 1-2 game will advance directly to the final tomorrow at the Canadian mixed doubles. Jocelyn Peterman and Brett Gallant will take on Lisa Weigel and John Epping. The trials winner will wear the maple leaf at the Milan Olympics if Canada qualifies. It's a dog's breakfast of a show. Who knows what's going to happen next hour? What I do know is you don't want to miss it. We'll be right back after this brief top of the hour break here on Game Plus, streaming live and podcast, wherever the best podcasts are found. To hour 2 of the RP show on a football Friday. And are you in luck? You're going to be purely entertained. And I kind of feel, in a sick, twisted way, you were last hour too. Moose, stop kicking your camera. Welcome to the program. I'm in the Florida studio. Moose is in the Toronto studio. Hey, Game Plus has made the decision. They're sticking with us, even though people bailed coming out of hour 1 because of tech issues. They are our team. They're our boys, and we move forward, Moose, on this football Friday. How you doing? Moose is trying to direct this thing. Our regular production team is not available, and we're doing our best. Okay, what do you have to say for yourself before I move forward?
No, I think we're good. I think, there's a feature in YouTube which will allow me to go back and basically scrub the whole first hour from the program. So, do you want to start again and forget about the technical difficulties? Welcome to the show. This is
yes and no. Yes and no. I don't know. It's kind of what makes us us. But what I will tell you is this. We're broadcasting from 4400 North Federal Highway in Boca Raton, Florida, the Sanctuary Tower office suites. You haven't been here. I moved in here since you've been to South Florida, Moose.
That's right.
But it's pretty much a full house in here today. All the suites are full. People back to work on this Friday, January the 3rd. So, a couple things. There's at least 3 offices on this floor that deal with OCD and anxiety. Specialists, counselors. Would you like their card, Darren, with regards to how this show's gone today? A little bit of anxiety, a little bit of OCD. So I was coming down the hallway in the break, and this nice gal. Here's the thing. Listen, we'll get to sports in a second, but we're kind of talking sports. She's from Canada, and one day she just came down here. She's originally from Montreal. She knocked on my door, and I was just about to go on the air. And I'm like, hello. And she's like, oh, I'm your new neighbor. I'm next door. And I heard you talking about hockey. Are you from Canada? Because nobody from here talks about hockey. I'm like, yes, but I'm going on the air. Like, there is something about live broadcast that does bring a little bit of OCD and anxiety. Right? Let's just be honest about it. We're not running into burning buildings. Okay? We're not responding to crashes of carnage, for sure. But stress is stress. Right? So, anyways, I went up to say hey to Yvonne today to thank her again. I just dumped the treats on the floor. I'm gonna leave them there. Yeah. You know what's right on prime with this day, isn't it? For those that weren't watching yesterday, you missed it. I was given this tray of what I can only call mini Timbits, and I thought it was from Yvonne, the receptionist. I went up to see her today because her Pittsburgh Penguins are in town. I said, are you going to the game tonight, Yvonne? She's like, no, I'm not going. And by the way, I didn't leave you the treats. Sorry to disappoint you. It was the owner of the building. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, anyways, nice to see you. She gave me a coffee, and away we went. Okay. To the sports. The reason I'm licking my fingers is imagine Timbits, Darren, covered in syrup, globbed into a ball, and served on a platter. That was the gift from the owner of this place. Plus pasta and tomato sauce. Don't ask. So although it's a football Friday, and we did cover it all with Jim Barker last hour, we'll get back around to NFL issues, college football playoff, and there is something I want to talk about with the CFL, a carryover from yesterday's show that I'll get to in a second. But we are on national television across Canada, God willing. Canada lost out in the World Juniors quarterfinal last night to Czechia, 4-3. They're done. They're going home. Canada has lost in the quarterfinal round. Brad writes in. Where the heck is Brad from? He's written in on the text line, 902-518-3033. Brad in Saskatoon. He says, I'm a World Juniors fan, and Canada only played well for 30 minutes in 4 games. They were undisciplined, poorly coached, and deserved exactly what they got. The sun did rise today. Yeah, for you. Yeah, because you don't have, yeah, sure. For all those that are saying the sun came up. Yeah, for you it did. Not for Dave Cameron, the coach who's sitting here fighting off all these jerks in the media, including me. Said it came up for you because you're going to go to work. Got no bearing on your life. Navy Dawn, saying the same thing. If it was your team that lost, like the Jets or the Riders, you'd be kicking puppies. Let's get real about it, like everybody else. Chad in Lethbridge writes in and says, still with you, RP and Moose. Glad you got the bugs fixed. To those complaining about the tech issues, take a deep breath. Would love to hear Sam Cosentino's take on Canada's World Juniors. As someone living in Lethbridge, Hurricane City, I am not surprised Peter Anholt's team fell short. The Hurricanes seem to always fall short. That's from Chad in Lethbridge. So it's the day after the night before the World Juniors. And I know a lot of people have showed up here to talk football. We're going to get to that. But just chill out for a second. We don't have a big opportunity to talk about these things year-round. It's like the only time, I'm going to put it in my 10 things column, that the whole country rallies and gets serious about junior hockey. The rest of the year, they don't care. I used to say when I worked in major junior for 20 years, you're all gripped by this for 2 weeks. Why don't you come on down and buy a ticket this next coming weekend? Come watch us play. When Eberle plays, or Holden, or Harding, or for our team. You don't come to that. I never quite got that. But Darren, with the selection process that everybody's bitching about, the players that were snubbed, the coaching being terrible, which frankly I didn't think it was good either. This team's better than what they showed. I could tell that with my own two eyes. That's going to happen when you lose. I think Dave Cameron needs to realize that because he's kind of taken a lot of shots back at people, right? He doesn't regret the way he coached. He says the hype's too big for what the tournament is. I don't think Dave Cameron should be on a Team Canada bench again. But when you lose, you're going to face these questions and this furor from the nation. Agree or no, or not agree?
No, when you lose, you made mistakes. Like it wasn't perfect, and now somebody has to shoulder that loss. And it, starts at the top as it usually does. Players take some onus too. But I've seen a lot of the comments about the roster makeup, and again, I'm in it quite a bit, especially now being out here in the OHL. As much as I've covered the Western Hockey League, I just haven't covered the Quebec League. But when you look at the roster, people are calling for Michael Misa, and Misa is going to go after Porter Martone in the upcoming draft. Good player, but Porter Martone couldn't get out of the press box in some games as a healthy scratch. And I watched him in the pre-tournament. He did not look like a guy who was going to play on Canada's top line. He was a good player, but I didn't notice Porter Martone, unfortunately. He's a great player, but that's more of how good this tournament is. You hear about Zach Parekh, or is it Carter Yaremchuk not playing? And maybe there's something we don't know about that. A lot's been made about those two liking the tweet after Canada lost to Latvia. Well, if that's the character, then maybe there's a reason that they're not on this roster. Like, we don't know what goes into it. I thought Bennett Seneca should have been on the team. I've watched him play quite a bit with Callum Ritchie in Oshawa. Great player. I thought maybe he should have been on the team. But at the end of the day, they picked a team, and it was there's good players on this team. They just couldn't score. And we only saw the trademark Canada energy and relentless attack, in the final 30 minutes of the last game, and it was too late.
It's your job as the coach to get the most out of the playoffs. Out of the players. When you don't, and the team falls short, you're going to get some heat. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
There's your meme of the day.
Can you write it down? You got to write it down. I'll read a couple comments while you write it down. When you lose, what'd I say? It's your job to get the most out of the players. When
As
you don't,
coach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll get it. Navy Don says his puppy kicking days are behind him. Yeah, sure. We'll wait to see how the Winnipeg Jets do in the playoffs, Don. I'll hold you to that. Tony and Cochran's come back, and so too apparently has Glenn with 2 N's. They're all watching again, so thank you. Tony says, I've watched more college football than I ever have. Loving the college football playoff format. There's so many tributaries, roads to go down off that comment. I think we all have, because it just feels like it's everywhere. It's on television everywhere. I think that's just something that the CFL should be fearful for. And as far as Canadian university football goes, forget it. I'm sorry. It's done. It's done. It doesn't. American football taking over in Canada, that's not what Tony's saying. But what you hear what I'm saying, and he's a football guy first, Tony from Cochrane, Alberta. That's why he's here today. But the college football has been amazing. It's got all the hype. It's got the ads. It's got the coverage in Canada. You can't get away from it. And just so you know, the games haven't been tremendous. The Sugar Bowl last night was a double-digit blowout-ish, Notre Dame over Georgia. The best game was Texas over ASU. But we were all watching, weren't we? I know I was. I'm pretty sure you were, Darren. Their ratings will be higher than ever, which, by the way, this is also a topic for another day, but I read you a headline this morning that less than 1 million people watched the outdoor game for the NHL, and that's the I do want to get to that here today in this hour. Topic for another time. Less than 1 million people watched the Chicago Blackhawks and St. Louis Blues on New Year's Eve in the outdoor game. So, as Bob Merrier texted me the other day, this was about the Montreal Canadiens rebuild, but it applies here. It's happening. It's happening. American football is taking over the frickin' world. And you guys, you're not even going to notice until the takeover is complete. Agree or disagree, Moose?
Oh, it's trending that way. That's for sure. And in a world, it's so exhausting. And, they continue to just be relentless in how they pursue new audiences and growing and all the rest. And, I'm not want to get big into the Winter Classic, but again, I didn't even know it was on New Year's Eve, that it was changing. And now that you say that, I saw the commercials of Bedard handing out his invitations to his New Year's Eve party, but I didn't think that meant the game was on. Like, it needs to be pounded and pounded and pounded into your head. And the change, it didn't land. I was expecting it on New Year's Day, and I didn't realize. And that's, college football has taken over New Year's Day, and perhaps the NHL thought, hey, we don't want to battle college football on New Year's Day, so we're going to move it. Didn't work.
They lost. Even more. They took the L. Jeremy in Winnipeg writes in and he says, sorry, NHL, stop putting the terrible Blackhawks in the Winter Classic. They never learn. See, here's the thing. Everybody just wants to be about image. Everybody wants to project the perfect thing. We're sitting here. We're having a good broadcast finally, an hour or two. But as I look at the YouTube feed, Darren, I'm a little off center in the shot. Oh, my God. Guess what? We're not perfect. You should have seen us in hour one. It was an absolute disaster. We lost an engine. We did.
We did.
Right. But Darren, before we crashed, but we're not perfect. All these leagues are trying to be perfect, but they're not. And do you think I didn't realize, I don't think people understood the gravity of the NFL getting in my head saying, if you talk more about us, things could be better for you, Rod. Yeah. Falling for that. I know what you're trying to do. Again, American football, they're being nice. Talk about us more, Rod. It'll be better for you if you do. I know what they're saying. Hey, you want to buy this watch? Right, Darren?
No, you're right. And I think about like the NHL and the outdoor game, and what for me, I like hockey and football almost equally. I think they're so great. But the one thing I like about football is every game's an event, right? And it's you build up all week for the event on the weekend, and it's once a week. Now, college bowl season, it's feels like there's football on every day. But it's an event. And with hockey, it's on all the time. And Hockey Night in Canada used to be the event, but now every show is trying to look like Hockey Night in Canada, and it's too much. And the same with the outdoor games. The outdoor game, the Winter Classic, was the regular season game that rose above the rest. It was an event. But now they have like a dozen stadium games throughout the year, and a Heritage and Stadium Series and all the rest. And what does the Winter Classic even mean? Because if I don't show up to that, I'll go to the stadium game, probably in 6 weeks or whenever it is. You have to understand a little bit of when enough is enough, or understanding what your market is actually looking for. And, it's just not working right now.
Well, I think you also have to understand that different people want different things and be okay with that. There's a couple things out of that. You just said there's college football on every night. Well, funny you should say that. Today is the First Responder Bowl in Dallas. Any idea who's playing? Who cares? We're going to watch North Texas versus Texas State. And the Mayo Bowl is being played today, Darren, in Charlotte. And it features Minnesota versus Virginia Tech. Tony and Cochran has just said he's watched more now than he ever has. Why? Because it's on. Just for interest's sake, how many of you did watch the Vanier Cup or the Mitchell Bowl or any of these games that were actually on? Those semifinals, Darren, Canadian University football were on CBC, were they not?
They were. Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
so.
So they're on. Did you guys watch? I'm interested to know. Or are you getting swept up in the hype? Now we're going to have to break here. We are going to play NFL Deal or No Deal here. But yeah, I brought up Serena a couple of times, my beautiful better half. She said Canada deserved to win last night. And I'm like, I don't agree, but I don't want to argue. I don't know what to say to that. She thinks there are too many outdoor games. I personally feel, and I've told her this, she's painting herself into a corner because news came out today that I want to talk about today. Not one, but 2 outdoor games will be played in Florida next year. Elliot Friedman, the NHL's unofficial public relations arm, Elliot Friedman dropping it on the 32 Thoughts podcast that both the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning are getting outdoor games next year. I was telling Darren before the show, I think you people realize now this is my home, South Florida. People are writing me going, where are they going to play? But all of a sudden it's big news. I'm like, this came up a month ago. Where are they going to play? They're like, they're going to play it where the Dolphins play? I'm like, no, guys, they're going to play at Lone Depot Park where the Marlins play. We went over this. And Serena's saying, well, it's not really an outdoor game. They have a retractable roof. They're going to close the roof. I'm like, who cares? It's not a... I don't even know what my point is other than the only time we argue is when it comes to hockey. It's weird. James Warnicky writes in, he says, Rod, I watched all the Canadian college football. It's good football. Well, your last name's Warnicky. That doesn't surprise me. You should. Good. I'm glad you did. Jeremy says college, NFL, NHL is life. BW in Edmonton says, did ESPN push the outdoor game to New Year's with all the college football games they have on New Year's Day? That's a good question. I don't know. I really don't know. Well, ESPN didn't air the outdoor game. TNT did. It's rivals. Do you know the answer to that, Darren, before we break?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, we do have, now we're getting somewhere. Stabilized. Beep, beep, beep. You can take your oxygen off.
Yeah, we had the oxygen mask on, let alone the seatbelt sign.
Well, and here's the thing. Tony from Cochrane, who is a football guy, says, I have to admit, only watch the Vanier Cup when the UFC Dinos are playing. I appreciate the honesty. That's what we do here. It's the coffee table discussions, the view for sports fans. You're going to watch North Texas versus Texas State in the First Responder Bowl today. You couldn't name one player with a gun to your head. But you're going to watch it. And most Canadians won't watch the U Sports games. That's all I'm asking. Kevin the Medium writes in, Kevin the Medium, ooh. He says the only reason you argue with her regarding hockey is she's an irrational fan. No, you're not listening. I don't argue with her at all. I don't know what to say. When she says Canada deserved to win, no, they didn't, but I feel like if I say that, I'll get punched. She feels the Oilers deserved to win the Stanley Cup final last year. Sure. Whatever helps you sleep at night. We'll be back. We got a lot to get to. We're finally getting somewhere. We're live on the Game Plus Television Network, streaming live and podcasts wherever the best podcasts are found. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hour two of a Football Friday. Thanks for sticking with us on what's been a rather trying day, but I think we got it figured out now. Hour two is brought to you by Culligan Water. Clear water, clear choice. Filter out the bad and taste the good. Culligan Water of Regina. Visit them at culliganregina.com. The number to reach us here, 902-518-3033. That is the text line or the streaming chat. And before as well, we'll get your comments to us. Before we get to the NFL deal or no deal, and I can for week 18, and I can tell you, well, a couple things. We've had tech issues, and it's sucky because last hour Jim Barker was with us, and it was the best interview we've ever had with Jim. And I think Darren's going to go back and scrub the whole first hour. And I don't blame you, by the way. I don't blame you. This day's going to end with me watching Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins here at the Florida Panthers. So I think that's a win. But we got big play out of our discussion yesterday, Darren, about Luke Wilson potentially being the next commissioner of the Canadian Football League. Yeah, the Seattle Seahawks tight end, not Owen Wilson's brother and the star of Old School, the other Luke Wilson. And I said he should be the next commissioner of the CFL. He clearly loves the league. He had some ideas. He retweeted our post and said, Commish. He's now referring to himself as the People's Commish. Davis Sanchez has got on board with that. TSN's Kara Wagland, Farhan Lalji. As a matter of fact, Luke Wilson said if he goes to the CFL head office as commissioner, he's taking Farhan and Dave Naylor with him. I'm not sure what they're capable of doing or what roles or offices they're qualified to hold. But I guess if Trump can appoint all these guys, Luke Wilson can, Darren.
Yeah.
But I'd like to know, what does he or she do? And in this case, he, because we've never had a female commissioner. What do you have any? Like, I don't know. I have some thoughts. What do you think? And by the way, I'm sure it's different from league to league to league. But what do you think this CFL commissioner's job would be, and why couldn't Luke Wilson do it?
Yeah, I don't know, but I have thoughts too, and so these are kind of mine. Without putting too much thought into this either, by the way. The job of the commissioner, A, is to be mediator and maybe be the guy who has to make the final call. So what I mean by that is you're sitting around with the owners, and the owners kind of decide where the league's going to go and what you're going to do, and they need to be on board. But when you have a stalemate, somebody needs to make the final call. But I think the biggest job of the commissioner for me is to be the face of the league, right? To spread the gospel and the good word, and also to build relationships. Build relationships with your TV partners, build relationships with other football leagues and federations, build relationships with the communities that you're in, and with other countries and with other, sponsors and things like that. Build relationships and spread the gospel of the Canadian Football League. And for all those reasons, I think Luke Wilson would be really good at it. I don't know if he's going to be able to make the league billions of dollars, broker backroom deals, or any of those things, or talk to Congress about the U.S., or talk to, the Canadian government about $150 million or $50 million in COVID funding. I don't know if he can do that. He could do better than Randy did.
Exactly. Neither could the last guy.
But he can spread the great word and build relationships.
Jeff, the Stamps fan, writes, and he says, it's to acquiesce to the 9 governors. You spelled that wrong, Jeff, but I'm not sure I even pronounced it wrong. So I know it's to kiss the butt of the 9 governors. Let's all be honest. That's what it is. But from what I know, and I don't mind saying this, it's Navy Dawn's written in with a great topic, but it's not this topic, so I got to stay on topic here. Kohan, I was thinking about this too, by the way. My interview with Scott Schultz the other day made me realize I think my wheelhouse as a decade was the 2000s. Scott Schultz's as well. That was when he was in the NFL. That's when he was the first overall pick in the CFL. That's when he had his Hall of Fame career with the Rough Riders. Scott Schultz, the decade of the 2000s. The trouble for us all, that was 20 years ago. That might have been when we peaked. That might have been when the CFL peaked. The stadiums were bursting. The games were airing on TSN, Sportsnet, CBC. Trust me, I was there. We were appearing in Grey Cup after Grey Cup. We were winning them. That's with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And the commissioner was Mark Kohan. And when he had news that he wanted spread, they'd call me. I'll never forget his PR guy, Jamie Dykstra. I think you've met Jamie. Here's a typical day. Phone rings. Hi, Jamie. What's up? Mark's on the line with TSN. He's talking to them, and then he wants to talk to you about blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay, I'll hold. So what's up, Jamie? He's at Woodbine now. That's the relationship we used to have. Cohan left, and then we had Orridge. That didn't go too good for any of us. And then Ambrosie, and I don't have that relationship with the league anymore. I don't know whether I ever will or not. I'm not sure. But what I know, the reason I bring this up is Cohan was that guy that you just said, Darren. Shook hands, kissed babies. Pretty real guy from what I saw. Yeah, did he love the Rough Riders? Very evident. He admitted it. Named his dog Ryder. He also played high school football, so he had a clue about the game. But he didn't run the league tactically, was my understanding that Kevin McDonald did, his right-hand man. The guy who got fired by Randy Ambrosie and is now running Football Canada. That same guy. It's nothing against Randy Ambrosie. I think what I'm saying here is things change. Personalities, some click, some conflict. Right? And so, again, Cohan didn't really run the league. I was told from a technical level, Kevin McDonald did, and Mark just did the interviews and looked good. It worked. It worked great. Everybody loved him. And now with Ambrosie, I don't know what goes on other than I see the president of the Riders saying they need to do a better job because they only had one sellout. Like everybody keeps saying, we need to do this, we need to do that, but you never do it. That's what I don't understand. People don't, whatever. So I don't know what this commissioner needs to do, I guess is my point. Nobody knows football better than Luke Wilson. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, I think it's a different role for every guy. And if it's just kissing the governor's ass, it's not a job I would want.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like every commissioner can do it a little differently. And it probably is a little different. Some guys do, like, ideally, that's what I think, that's how I would do it. I would have somebody in there like a Luke Wilson, maybe not him, but somebody like a Mark Cohan or whatever, that's in there looking good, representing the league, building relationships, doing those things. And you need to have a great team behind them executing on it. Like you can't be two places at once. And so you need to put people in great positions to excel. And, people person at that commissioner's role to, broker deals between teams and TV and relationships. Meanwhile, someone's got to do the, dirty work behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And but everybody will do it differently. You're right.
I just got a sick feeling in my gut thinking about this because here we are again in January and wanting to talk about the CFL. But as you pointed out yesterday, it's quiet. We don't know any names. There's not much hype or anything going on. And I don't think that they want it. And that's very disappointing to me. You beat me 8-5, just so you know, in the NHL picks last night. NHL breakaway pick. You probably know that. By the way, Jeff the Stamps fan says, if you want a Cohan, hire a celebrity. That's my whole thing. I don't know what they want. I don't think they know what they want. Somebody brought up the other day, yesterday it was in our Twitter mentions. They said, hiring Luke Wilson to be the CFL commissioner would be like hiring Rob Gronkowski to be the NFL commissioner. What I would say to that is, so what? Are you guys not understanding we're in the wild, wild west time of society where literally anything goes? Yeah, the commissioners have been suit and tie nerdy types. Goodell, Bettman, Adam Silver, Rob Manfred, most people couldn't pick out of a lineup. Does it need to be that? Darren, does it need to be that? Or are we in a time where, because the CFL is so quirky and zany and goofy, maybe that's the commissioner we need?
It doesn't need to be the suit and tie. And to be honest, maybe it needs to be the opposite. I mean, there's a time and place for that. But look at Roger Goodell and all the public appearances he's been doing more and more every year. And how many times now is he seen without a suit? I see him now in runners, nice pair of pants and a quarter zip more often than I see him in a suit, or he's and he's going on the networks like this, to try and relate to the fans. and it's working. And then there's a time and place for the suit and tie, and it's all business. But Roger Goodell's realizing that, and he's evolving, and the league's evolving. And I think that's really important.
Well, again, that whole don't sit on your laurels thing. I just said earlier in the program, American football is taking over the continent. I just think, I'll give you a perfect example. I was sitting with a BC Lions staffer. I think you know him. I was actually with him at Grey Cup. He was reminding me of a story from 10, 11, 12 years ago where he and I sat in the press box at BC Place Stadium, and I turned to him and I said, hey, blankety blank, how much you paying attention to what the Seahawks are doing here in the Lower Mainland? And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, are they making inroads? Are they trying to market here? He's like, no, we're not worried about the Seahawks. Now, in the meantime, the Seahawks are holding golf tournaments in the Lower Mainland, doing mall appearances and signing autographs and sending fan buses from Kelowna and Kamloops down to Seattle. They were coming in, eating their lunch, and the Lions weren't even paying attention till, it's gone. Then what? It takes a hell of a lot of work to get it back. So my point is, college football has a triple header in their college football playoff on New Year's Day. Well, that was scheduled until the events of New Orleans changed all that. So we don't know that that's why the NHL moved their outdoor game to New Year's Eve, but we don't know that it wasn't. And it was a major failed job. I think I'll do a little poking around tonight at the Panthers game and see if I can find out why they moved it. But moving things is not a good decision. That's why we're on here every day, noon to 2. Have been for 6 years on Game Plus. Same guys, same place, same station, and it works. But it wouldn't surprise me if they tried to avoid college football on the New Year's Day. Wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know for sure whether that was the case or not. So we'll look at these Week 18 NFL games with Moose when we come back and get your take on them all, everybody, as well. Dealer and Odio coming up, sports update, viewer takeover. We still got a lot to get to on this Football Friday here on Game Plus, streaming live and podcast, wherever the best podcasts are found. what I almost said, Four Seasons Football Friday continues. It's been that kind of a day. 21 minutes left in the program today until the weekend is here. And I'm so excited about it. 902-518-3033 is the number to text us here. I said we would get to the NFL Week 18, but just a couple of texts. Vintage Sasko writes in. He says, "Hi, Uncle Rod. How about Justin Trudeau for CFL commissioner? He may be jobless and looking for a new high-ranking job." He goes, he writes, "I woke up and chose violence today." I don't know what made me think of it. This just popped into my head again. Jim Barker last hour, the five-time Grey Cup champion, says he gets more reaction from being on this show than all of the reaction from TSN combined. He always has people coming up saying, "I love you on the RP show." Nobody's ever come up and said, "I know you from TSN." He goes, "Maybe it's because you're on in both Canada and the USA, because it happens in both countries." I don't know. I just need a win today, so I'm repeating it. Laverne writes in from Swift Current, says, "Hey, RP, so the commissioner has three major jobs: retain the league, maintain the league, and grow the league. And obviously to be a good listener. That's four." He says, kind of like being a business owner. Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. Both of us are somewhat fried. You're putting your hand on did that go over the air? Your hand on the camera?
No chance.
Okay. Are you ready to play NFL Week 18?
I'm ready to play. I'm not going to, I wouldn't, well, I was going to do it now just to demo, but no, I wouldn't put my hand on the lens while I'm on the screen.
That's
if I could help it.
Listen, after what we've gone through today, who would care? Oh, the poll question today, which incidentally is brought to you as it is every day by EMJ Marketing. They'll provide the perfect keynote speaker for your event. Look them up at emjmarketing.com and ask for Joe there. Who wins Sunday's biggest NFL regular season game of all time? The Minnesota Vikings or the Detroit Lions? 67% of you saying the Detroit Lions will win at home. And that's part of what we do here with Deal or No Deal. I give the point spreads, the betting line, and Darren decides whether you'll take the bet or not. And then I agree or disagree. So there are a couple games on Saturday. Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Darren, by the way, the point spreads are bonkers. They're crazy. I don't know if you've looked at them at all for this week. The Ravens are favored by 20 points at home over Cleveland. Are you taking that deal or not?
No, I'm not. I'm not. They're going to be bonkers because we don't know who's going to play. A lot of teams have announced resting. They're still pros, these backups. They want to prove themselves. I think Cleveland will play for pride.
They're literally, the odds makers and betting companies are trying to entice you with some crazy betting lines. That's what I think it is. But I'm not taking the deal either. Ravens will win, but by less than 20, I believe. Cincinnati Bengals at Pittsburgh. And, of course, a lot of this boils down to who needs it more. I believe if the Bengals win, they keep their playoff hopes alive. They would need help. But the Bengals are favored by 2 at Pittsburgh. Deal or no deal?
Deal for me. Pittsburgh's got a little issues, too. Deal.
They've lost 3 in a row, I believe. I'll take the deal. New York Giants at Philadelphia. Eagles resting Saquon Barkley. And Philly, though, favored by 3. Deal or no deal?
Yeah, I'll still take the deal. Philly's deep and they're good.
And the Giants need to lose more.
Yeah, they can't afford a win.
Chicago at Green Bay. The Packers are favored by 10 in a completely meaningless game for them. They can't move up or down. The game means nothing, but they're favored by 10. You taking
I'm
that
going to
bet?
say no deal.
Me too. Chicago's going to try and show something.
Yeah.
Carolina at Atlanta. Panthers at Falcons. Falcons need the win and then some help to win the NFC South. They're favored by 8. Deal or no deal?
I like what the Panthers have done the last month or so. So I'll say no deal.
I'm taking the deal. New Orleans Saints at Tampa Bay. Bucks need to win. And if they do, they'll clinch the NFC South for what I think will be maybe the 5th straight year, at least the 4th. And the Saints are just trying to finish their year. Bucks favored by 14. Deal or no deal?
Oh, I'm still going to take the deal. That's a big pill to swallow.
Adam, I'm taking it too. Washington Commanders at Dallas, and this reminds me of our chat last hour with Jim Barker. Oh, my God. I'm not joking when I say it was the best chat we've ever had with him. He goes, you look at the Commanders, he goes, you want to give the credit to Dan Quinn, the head coach, first year. You want to give it to Jaden Daniels, the rookie quarterback. You can. He goes, but it's ownership. They're doing something that they couldn't have done in any of the years with Daniel Snyder. And the Commanders favored at Dallas by 6. Deal or no deal?
Deal for me.
Yeah, me too. The Cowboys. Again, the watch will be after the game to see how long before Mike McCarthy's told to pack your shit.
Put them out of their misery.
Jacksonville at Indianapolis. Colts favored by 5.
Sure, I'll take the deal, but they got some problems too. Both of those franchises right now.
Me too. I'm taking the deal. Houston Texans, the playoff-bound Houston Texans at Moose's playoff-not-bound Tennessee Titans. Titans favored by a point. Deal or no deal?
Tony Pollard's got some individual bonuses to go after. But the Titans need to lose for the draft pick, so no deal.
Yeah, me either. Buffalo Bills at New England. Apparently, Josh Allen is going to start, play a series, then sit down because he's got this monster streak of starting games, a mind-boggling streak of starting. He's got 115 games or something crazy. Bills favored by 2 at New England. Deal or no deal?
No deal. They're going to rest, and Drake May will have a good finish to the season.
Okay, I'm with you on that. We're not agreeing with any of these point spreads, interestingly. Speaking of teams that need to win, Denver Broncos, home favorites by 10 over the Kansas City Chiefs. Are you taking that deal or not?
I am taking that deal. I think Sean Payton, Bo Nix. I think the Broncos are playoff bound, and the Cincinnati Bengals are not.
Toilet Bowl in Arizona. The Cardinals, home to San Francisco. Arizona favored by 4. Another promising season down the toilet for the Redbirds. Cardinals favored by 4. Deal or no deal?
For both these teams, I'll take the deal.
Me too. 49ers just want to get it over with. This one I'm pretty confident in. Miami at the New York Jets, because I've had Dolphins coverage crammed down my throat all week with where I live. The Dolphins are favored by a point at the Jets. But apparently they don't know who's starting at quarterback, but it's got to be Snoop Huntley, I'm sure. He won last week for the Dolphins. Will they do it again? I'll say yes. I'll take the deal. They're favored by a point at the Jets. You?
Yeah, Rod, I will too. Deal for me.
Seattle Seahawks at the LA Rams. Get this one. If the Seahawks win, they'll finish with the same amount of wins as LA, but miss the playoffs, and the Rams take the division. Figure that one out. Seahawks favored by 6. Deal or no deal?
No deal. I'll take the Rams.
I'm taking the deal for the Seahawks. Are going to want to finish strong. I think the Rams will rest guys. BW writes in, he says he's trucking by Hallbright Sask, minus 27 Sask. Are you going north or south, BW, on the 39? I'd like to know. You're going to be driving through the home of the Lee family, the Myers family, and the Johnner brothers. It's a deal for me. Seahawks by 6.
Right.
LA Chargers at Las Vegas. Chargers favored by 4, and I'm taking the deal because I think the Raiders are going to find a way to tank it. They need to lose.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Okay, no deal. Sorry, we're both taking the deal on that one. And then Minnesota at Detroit, the biggest NFL regular season game of all time, which incidentally, Jim Barker agreed with that assessment too. First time 2 14-win teams have opposed each other in NFL history with a lot on the line. The winner gets the number 1 seed and a bye in the wild card round. The loser has to go on the road. Lions are favored by 2. Deal or no deal?
Deal.
You're taking the
I'll
Lions?
take the Lions.
By
Yeah.
2 or more? Yeah, me too. There you go. NFL deal or no deal, everybody. Sport betting. It was invented by Moose and I, where we pick the games and put nothing on the line. Give it a try. Rich in Edmonton writes in, he says, Rod just named the entire town of Hallbright. You weren't listening. I said you're close to the town of Mydale, where all those people are from. Hallbright's a different town. It's a Sask thing. While we're here, Darren, and there's only 5 NHL games, you want to play those too?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Penguins at Panthers.
We're going straight up, right? I'm waiting for you to give me point spreads like it's football.
No.
Give me the Panthers.
Paul Maurice ripped their ass last night.
Yeah.
Panthers will have their way with the Penguins tonight. Montreal at Chicago. I think the 4th straight win the Habs are going for. Although Kyle Davidson, the GM of the Blackhawks, ripped his team after the outdoor game the other night. Montreal
It'll be
at
like
Chicago.
the Rangers after the meeting with the owner. That'll fall flat. I'm going to take the Canadians.
Yeah, me too. Hey, Kyle Davidson, I was not too happy with your effort either. Ottawa at St. Louis. I'm going to take the Blues, if I may go first.
Okay, I'll take Ottawa.
They just lost in Dallas last night. Ottawa did.
Yeah.
Anaheim at Edmonton. Oilers for me. How about you?
Yeah, me too. They lost to Anaheim last time. It won't happen again.
And Anaheim still drunk with euphoria after their win in Winnipeg last night. And Smashville at Vancouver. What say you?
I'll take the Canucks back-to-back games.
Yeah, I got to take them too because Nashville, I'm done with it. I'm done with them. Okay. From the audience. Hey, Luke Brunskill writes in. He says, "One pride, baby." That's their hashtag, One Pride, Detroit Lions. Oh, here come all the Lions fans. My sense is Luke probably was a long-time one. I do know a few. That is like, well, they haven't won anything yet. But I would say that is the most egregious, or the most aggrieved fan base of all time. Shy writes in, he says, "Great show, Rod, even with all the problems. Lots of laughs, and remember rule number 62. Have a great day." Is that rule number 62? Have a great day? I don't know what rule number 62 is. Tony from Cochrane,
No excuses. Play like a champion. Isn't that Vince Vaughn?
Oh, okay, maybe. Tony from George Fox Country says, "Purple hearts to both Moose and Rod for landing this plane with only one engine, and no one died." Not yet, Tony. But Moose did land it, and Game Plus kept us on the air, and I appreciate that. That's a partnership. That's a team. A winning team right here. Glenn in Medicine Hat writes in, he says, "Looking forward to including some WJC forensics, World Junior Championship forensics, for those that aren't in the dub lingo, dog, in my next 10 WHL things. It won't be for the faint of heart." Okay, we'll be right back with Overtime right after this. We're live on Game Plus TV, streaming live and podcasts wherever the best podcasts are found. Hey there, hi there. How's it going? Welcome to overtime. Whoop. Glad I didn't say what I was going to say. Not that it
Stick
would.
with me. What were you going to say?
I can't tell you. It has to do with BW's comment, the last one to come in, and I can't address that over the air. It's overtime, brought to you by our friends at Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary. I'm assuming they've stuck with this just as like everybody else that's still here today, despite our technical issues. So, hey, thank you to one of our sources. I don't think he minds. Chad in Lethbridge has written in. He's checked with his sources. He is connected in the hockey world and the NHL specifically. The NHL did indeed move their outdoor game, the Winter Classic, to New Year's Eve so as to not compete with the triple-header in college football playoff on Saturday. And I guess it backfired, Darren, because less than 1 million people watched the Winter Classic. Why do you think it dipped so much? Because they consciously moved it to avoid that happening.
People didn't know it was on. That's the thing. We didn't
You
know.
didn't, right?
I didn't. We didn't know. And at scale, people say, well, I knew it was on. At scale, people didn't know it was on. It's become a New Year's Day tradition. And you took it away and you moved it to New Year's Eve. I get it. There was probably some advertising. I do remember seeing the Bedard ad, but I don't even remember understanding that that was about New Year's Eve, that they switched the game. So, just didn't tell people. And they got lost I remember we talked about it on New Year's Eve. I was like, we were doing breakaway bets. And I'm like, the Washington-Boston game, that's already on, Rod. And I'm going to watch Toronto and the Islanders this afternoon. I didn't even think about the Winter Classic. We went through the games. I didn't even realize.
Yeah. Well, I actually mentioned in those picks that it was the Winter Classic, but zoom in. You were thinking of something else. But again, hey, you and I really aren't the bosses. There's a lot of stuffy people that are the bosses that make these decisions, and we just go along with them. I feel like the world is coming around. I try to stick to my own little world, like the 5 W's: who, where, what, why, and when in the media business. Oh my God. Don't get me started to how far we've gotten away from the cornerstones and the fundamental pillars of what we do as a media business. But we're kind of coming back. So Rich in Edmonton says, I blame it on those endless, overproduced Road to the Winter Classic shows year after year. I don't know. Whoever that coach was, that Major League Baseball manager, I think it was Leah with the Chicago Cubs. All the negativity in this town sucks. Can we be positive going into the weekend? I think we all need that. Colin in Ottawa writes in, he says, I think that another advantage that football has over hockey is the average football fan believes they get the basic strategy of the game they're watching, whereas hockey strategy is hard to pick up. I guess it depends on why you watch. I'm not sitting there trying to coach a game. I'm not sitting there trying to broadcast a game. I'm sitting there trying to be entertained. My better half, Serena, she didn't like the outdoor games. I do. I like the pageantry, the pomp, the circumstance.
30.
What did we say here? Tony in Cochrane says he's watched more college football bowl games and playoff than he ever has. Well, it's because they're making a great spectacle of it. It looks great on TV. Some of these other leagues have that. Some don't. More than anything, everybody, just be good to yourselves and each other. And that's it. We'll see you Monday back here on Game Plus. Same time, same station. Thanks for hanging out.